You're on mute, Allison.
Thank you. Chairman Palguda,
Present.
Vice Chair Brown,
Here.
Secretary Treasurer Good. Absent. Member Hughes,
Here. Here.
thank you. Member Armstrong is absent, but today we have his proxy, Mr. McCafferty,
Here.
and Member Knight is absent, but we have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Vice Chair Brown, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Sure. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Clerk, will you please go over item 3, Title 6 policy?
Sure. CYMPO complies with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and related non-discrimination statutes and regulations in all programs and activities. Members of the public may review the CYMPO Title VI plan and submit a self-identification survey by accessing the CYMPO website.
Thank you, ma'am. Item 4, call to the public. This item is to provide an opportunity for presentation of comments by the public on subjects not on the agenda. Individuals wishing to address the board need not request permission in advance and are limited to 3 minutes. Allison, have we had anyone reach out or is currently on that wishes to speak?
We have not received any comments as of now.
All right. Moving on, item 5, consideration of possible action to approve the May 18th to May 2 executive board regular meeting minutes. We've all had. Vice Chair, you're on mute. I'll entertain a motion if we're good on approving the minutes.
I make a motion. So moved.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
All right. Moving on to item 6, executive director's update. Mr. Gallegos, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Just a couple of brief announcements for today. I appreciate everyone being able to accommodate going virtual today. I had a couple close calls with COVID. Everyone's good and healthy today, but just thought for our small staff purposes to accommodate would be best to go virtual. So I appreciate the change. We've received notification that the request that we put into Senator Mark Kelly's office has been received, and Senator Kelly has agreed to put in the request that we put in for, which was our fiscal year 24 project in our transportation improvement program. If you remember, it's the State Route 89A design concept report. So we do have it currently programmed, budgeted. You all, I've presented it to you, you've agreed to it. What we did is we put in for the monies for this project, and if awarded, then it'll allow us to free up that money and put it towards another prioritized project. So this is a congressionally directed spending by Senator Kelly's office. As he's agreed to put it in his budget, as everyone here knows, it now goes to the debate on the US floor for the overall budget. So I guess long story short, we'll know in the next 6 months after the US budget has been approved whether or not this project is awarded. But I do want to compliment staff in how we put that together. And I want to appreciate Senator Kelly's office for acknowledging the project and agreeing to tentatively support it. So with that said, fingers crossed that we get the money. I want to say the project's at about $480,000. So almost $500,000 for a planning project. And again, if awarded, we'll be able to put those CYMPO dollars towards another project. Any questions or comments on that? Not seeing any. And then we also got notification from ADOT for another grant that we put in to help us out with our transit planning efforts and mobility management efforts. It's quite a bit smaller than the last Senator Kelly's announcement, but it's still helpful. It's $90,000 a year for the next 2 years, so $180,000 So again, compliments to CYMPO staff for putting together that application. Thank you to ADOT for awarding it. And again, these dollars just help us to move forward in the mission of what CYMPO is doing. So with that, Mr. Chair, those are my only announcements. Happy to answer questions or comments.
Anything for Mr. Gallegos at this time?
What can we use for this $90,000 for, Benny?
So what I'm going to do, Supervisor Brown, Chair Palguda, and the board is we already have programmed the position, our transit planner position that was formerly Kimberly's position and now is going to be Bryn Stotler's position here in a few weeks. Supervisor Brown, the intent is to actually go ahead and use that money. Even though we had the dollars programmed for it, we're going to free up the dollars that were programmed, and we'll make the $180,000 available now for other CYMPO projects. So I'm basically going to swap it out. So we'll bring in that money to pay for the position. It'll free up those dollars so that we can put it towards another prioritized project. With that said, once we do that, though, to answer your question a little bit further, it's to be determined, and I'll bring that back to you with some recommendations. Because we potentially are going to free up a couple projects. I know Kevin will be joining us shortly, and that RTAC effort looks positive. Senator Kelly, which I announced a minute ago, looks positive, and now we got this money. So in one way, we freed up almost $1 million possibly over the next year that we can go ahead and put towards other CYMPO priority projects. I hope that answers your question, Supervisor Brown.
Well, it would seem that, if we're going to have this kind of money and it's going to come forward if, all of it's realized, we should do something substantial in order to have that recognized by the people that have actually gone out and got the money for us.
You bet. And that's a great point, Supervisor Brown. With that said, the only one we know for sure is the smallest one, which is the 180,000 over the 2 years. That's for sure. And I can bring back at your next meeting a little more specifics about that. The other two we're still waiting to hear, and to your point, we can bring back some recommendations to make a substantial project recommendation to recognize the efforts that you referenced.
Can we get some kind of a report back on transit in the county from our transit folks and give us an update and or their status and how things are going? Because I've heard different things in regards to YRT, and it's been up and down and around, and 1 minute they're doing the plunge, 1 minute they're not, and I don't know exactly how things are going on in Prescott Valley and with Prescott's transit systems, but I'd like a little update on it.
You bet, Supervisor Brown. I don't know if you're reading my mind or not, but what I have on the annual retreat that we have scheduled for September, I do have an item on there that we would be giving you pretty much everything you just asked for. So a bit of a rundown on the various transit programs and some of the planning projects we have to support them, like the marketing plan we're going to be doing to help out YRT in Prescott Valley and a handful of other things. So if it's okay with you, we do plan on giving you an update at that September meeting, if that's good enough.
Well, that's 3 months away, so.
Yeah, and if you want something sooner, I'm happy to either do an email or we can do it at our next meeting. Happy to do whatever.
How about next meeting, just a quick verbal?
You bet.
Any serious detail or anything like that?
Sure.
Just where are they running into problems? Because I've heard YRT's having some bumps and grinds, and in Prescott Valley and Prescott, they've already been a year since they implemented, so a year plus actually.
Yeah, great point. And we'll give you an update at the next meeting. To be a little bit fair, I've heard a few of the same things, and I am scheduling a meeting with, I'm sorry, it's Tom, I forget his last name, the transit manager of YRT, just to get an update myself, because I want to know a little bit more of what's happening. So we'll meet with them, and we'll also give you an update at the next meeting.
Well, it's my understanding that the Romleys and YRT have decided that their last day is September.
That's news to me. So I'm glad you're sharing that with us and letting us know. I was concerned when I had heard that some of their funding they had asked for was not fully awarded. I wasn't aware of that, and we want to work with them to make sure they get everything they need at this point.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on to item 7, transit planning update. Ms. Post.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My first point had to do with the ADOT funding that Vinny just discussed. One caveat to our regional mobility management award from them is, even though we apply for 2 years at a time, we are awarded it 1 year at a time, and that's due to just simply the appropriation. So we can assume that our second year will be the full funding amount of $90,000 as well. So I also wanted to speak a little bit more to Supervisor Brown's question about how the $90,000 is spent. When ADOT awards these funds, it comes with a grant agreement and the scope of work, and that includes items like maintaining a vehicle inventory of the available vehicles that the coordinated mobility program uses and has as assets, as well as holding the local coordination council meetings that we do, and Bren will start to do when she begins on June 30th. So those are monthly, 6 times a year. And we do have transit updates we'd be happy to provide for you. That's very easy, and we're glad to see your interest, and we're glad to do that. So to build on the ADOT award publication that came out last week, not only did we get our full funding award amount, but the transit agencies also got their funding for operations and capital funding for their operations. And that includes New Horizons Disability Empowerment Center, who is the chosen providing operator for the Prescott Valley Yavaline microtransit system. So it was important to see that they got awarded their needed amount as well. An agency who applied for funding but did not receive it in the Prescott area is the Hajoni Foundation, and they provide client-based transportation for residential, vocational, and educational services for those with disabilities. They have been operating in Prescott for quite some time. They also operate in Cottonwood and in Flagstaff. We understand that vehicle prices have, in some cases, doubled, and the vehicle that they applied for their Prescott operation is one that has substantially increased. And not only that, but there's about a 2-year production delay. So they were not awarded a vehicle, but I do want to invite them to participate in the local coordination council. Not only is it required if they do ever want to receive 5310 funds in the future, but I think their participation would be very valuable considering the work that they do. So I look forward to introducing them to you in the future. That is it for my transit updates for today. I do welcome any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Post? Not looking like there's any. We'll move on. Is Kevin on?
I am not seeing him. He did text me. He said he would be here about 15 minutes, so it's 14 after the hour. So,
All right.
Mr. Chair, if you want to go on, and when he jumps in, we'll let you know.
Sounds good. Ms. Post, you're back up. Project update of Sundog Connector design concept report and environmental overview.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Sundog Connector project is well underway. On June 3rd, we had our first stakeholder meeting. We had a very good turnout. Representatives from a variety of backgrounds came. Matt Bondi and the project team from AECom presented technical information. And then together we participated in an engagement activity. The 3 prompts that the group engaged in were, what is your greatest concern or question about the potential Sundog connector? If the Sundog connector were never constructed, what would be the most impactful concern or impact on the regional public? And if the Sundog connector were guaranteed to be built, what type of roadway and features would be most desirable? We got a lot of great feedback. We continue to actually get a lot of great feedback, as I invited folks to do so when I distributed those stakeholder meeting materials, and I do believe everybody here present received them. I thank you, those of you who came to the meeting and participated. It was on a Friday afternoon in a summer day when your kids are probably off of school. So I do appreciate your participation. So we had a lot of very good points raised there. My last update on the Sundog Connector project is that the next newsletter will go out in the next week and will include some frequently asked questions that I've seen folks raise. And hopefully that'll clear up some questions I've seen throughout the community. I want to also announce that our project website is up and running. It's at CYMPO.org, and it's at the top header. You'll see Sundog Connector info. And so we hope that you'll take a look and spread it around as you see fit. And that's all my updates for that item. And I do welcome any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions? All right, jockeying back to number 8, Rural Transportation Advocacy Council. Mr. Adam, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate the time to talk to you. We've got a tremendous amount going on at the Capitol right now. At this point, we have passed the 150th day of session. Of course, they do target 100 days. We've got a budget that's been introduced, or at least the framework for it, but it appears that leadership doesn't have the votes to push it through, so they are continuing to move in that direction. The big deadline that is fast approaching is the start of the next state fiscal year, which is on July 1st. So we're just about a couple of weeks out from that point. As far as that budget is concerned, leadership and the governor have come to an agreement that includes roughly $1 billion in one-time revenue that would be directed to the infrastructure. So I think that's an extremely positive step. There are numerous state highway projects that are included in their proposal. There's $50 million for the governor's SMART fund, which would provide funding throughout greater Arizona for application assistance, as well as local match contributions for federal competitive grants. And so I think that'll be a tremendous opportunity to maximize the federal funding that we're able to bring back to greater Arizona. As far as the RTAC legislation is concerned, House Bill 2396, which included predominantly local projects from across the state. There is a line item in the budget summary that has been released, which provides roughly $66 million for local projects in rural Arizona, and all indications are that the projects that were in our original list will be included in that amount. And we've also got a dozen projects that were on our alternative list, which consisted predominantly of the state projects. So we're anxiously awaiting to see if they can cobble the votes together in a manner that will preserve that portion of the proposal. At this time, we have not received any indication that it's the infrastructure portion that's holding up the budget. It appears to be K-12 spending, and there are discussions underway to address that and get the votes for enactment. So nothing is done until they've voted it out, but we're feeling fairly confident that we will see a fairly significant increase, about $1 billion directed towards infrastructure. The other point that I'll make is about $120 million of that billion is directed towards making inflationary adjustments for maintenance work, as well as some existing projects that were already underway. So I do think it was a positive step that they've, to the extent that they can, they've also included inflationary adjustments in the investment levels that they're directing towards the infrastructure. So like I indicated, I think there's still quite a bit a ways from having the votes to pass this. But again, that they got to get something in place by July 1st, and that is the target they were looking at. So with that, I'll keep everybody posted and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Mr. Adam, nicely done. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Move on to item 10, review, discussion, and possible action to approve advertisement of the RFP for the State Route 69 Urbanized Corridor Master Plan. Mr. Gallegos, are you leading us off?
Yeah, I'll kick it off. Thanks, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So we did bring this to you at your last executive board, at least a little bit more of an introduction of the idea of we're now moving forward with the State Route 69 Master Corridor planning. What we brought to you last time was a draft scope. Today we have a final scope in your packet, along with a finalized draft of the request for proposals. So again, this goes back to our strategic planning retreat a little over a year ago, when we prioritized our transportation improvement program and our major planning projects for the next 5 years. As you all are aware, we've kicked off the Sundog Connector in year 1. We're now preparing to enter into year 2 of that transportation improvement program, which essentially or officially begins July the 1st. So that's in a couple weeks, but we do have all the information in your packet. Hopefully you've had a chance to review it. Lindsay's going to give you just a couple highlights of the scope of the request for proposals. But just to let you know that this study will run the next 12 months. Again, it's our intent that you would have the results of the Sundog Connector and the results of the State Route 69 plan roughly about the same time, so that as a region, the region can decide which is the priority to really move forward with. With that said, Mr. Chair, I'd like to turn it over to Lindsay Post, and she'll walk you through highlights of the scope and the highlights of the request for proposals. Lindsay.
Thank you. You should see the RFP. Please let me know if that's the case or if you see my shopping cart.
We do see the RFP.
I do notice that the first thing I see here is it says draft project scope of work. This is the final scope of work. It has not changed since the last time you saw it in May. It was drafted based on the input of, pardon me, the TAC, the EMAC, planning colleagues around the state, as well as input from our district administrator, Anthony Brozich, and Andy Ross. So thank you, who is present today. Thank you. So in your packet, you have the solicitation for your review and possible approval. The scope starts on page 4, as you see on your screen. And as I said, it's the same as you saw in May. It includes all the features that you saw in May, including modeling and analysis, a needs assessment, land use, zoning, and development, where a lot of the input from Andy and Anthony comes in. And then urbanized public transit, 5307 corridor evaluation, as well as freight due to its status in the National Freight Corridor. I'm going to scroll down to page 8. The only change we have since this was initiated was our schedule for the RFP. Our advertisements cannot be before July 1st, so we will allow for a 4-week advertisement, and we have hope to have a recommendation for a consultant for the September board meeting. And then from there, the notice to proceed will happen in October, pending approval from the Yavapai County Board of Supervisors. To select an accountant, select a consultant, pardon me, we will use the review process that's included in the packet, the bottom of page 8. As this is not a bidding process, simply being the lowest cost will not mean that we will select that proposal. Instead, we will focus on a demonstrated track record and the experience of the proposing firms. Any changes made to the scope or solicitation from here will be strictly proofreading. So any typos that I might find will be corrected, but the changes to the content or context will not change. Are there any questions about the RFP? I'm happy to answer if so.
Doesn't look like there's any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
At this time, can we entertain a motion? I'm sorry, Ms. Post, are you complete on this?
I am. Thank you so much.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion if we don't have any questions or comments.
I'll make a motion.
Whoever that last was, you were kind of garbled.
That was Mayor Hughes.
Yes, I'll make a motion. Yeah.
All right. Sounds like Mayor Hughes made a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Moving on, item 11, review, discussion, and possible action to approve amendment of the fiscal year 2022 to
By
2023.
the way, I should be recorded as a nay, since I never heard the motion.
Duly noted. Item 11, review, discussion, and possible action to approve amendment of the fiscal year 2022-23 Unified Planning Work Program. Mr. Gallegos, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Allison, can you bring up from the packet the one-page amendment sheet that'll help us run through this? So as Allison's bringing this up, you do have this in your packet. Everything on the page of the amendment is highlighted, but what I've asked Allison, for the sake of your following and my presenting and this meeting, is to come up with this one page. So again, you're welcome to flip through and find out where all these changes are, but we have consolidated it, at least for presentation purposes. So just adding in that first section, the administrative part, adding the new planner's name into the work program. So Bryn Stotler, adding Andy Roth as the representative for ADOT on the TAC. We updated that. We have somebody that's new on the EMAC group. His name is John Pratt. So adding his name to there, he's replacing Ron James, who was formerly on the EMAC group. Adding the carbon reduction program, and I'm going to explain a little bit more in just a moment about that, but this is a little bit of the narrative here. So just some narrative things and then some actual dollar amount things. So we have some carry forward funds that were not utilized fully in this year, keeping in mind that what happens pretty much in every single year is we have two financial partners that we work with. One is ADOT Finance and one is Yavapai County Finance, which is our fiscal agent. And usually in the conversations that Allison has with them, there's a variety of discussions that happen where we have some additional funds that were identified. So in this particular case, about $114,000 are being carried forward for, I almost want to say, placeholder purposes, because I don't have it worked out to the end yet. We have outlined the use of those dollars for now. $20,000 we've identified for what's being called project assessment, FHWA, or Federal Highway Administration. What that is as many of you sent to me, some of these federal grant opportunities that are being announced and coming out, we're scrambling to find what projects would compete best for those projects. And at this point, what my hope is in the next couple of months to talk to you more specifically about having a consultant help us to identify for about $20,000 which projects would line up best that we already have prioritized. They're not necessarily new projects, but the question to answer is which projects would compete the best on the particular federal grant criteria that's out there now. So if you could just look at this as more of a placeholder, that's where the money's going for now. The final approval, will come back to you in a few months and explain a recommendation how we might use that better. Same thing with FTA, Federal Transit Administration. And then number 3, or letter C, as in cat, is social equity analysis. What this is there's a program called Safe Streets for All. Each of your cities, towns, and the county are eligible for it, and the Metropolitan Planning Organization is eligible. But one of the key criteria to access this is that our safety plan must have what's being identified as a social equity analysis. So it's a little bit interesting because we do analyze the demographics of our area, of our region, if you will, but we do not necessarily align them with projects. So that is what's lacking, and we're not alone. This is something that many MPOs, many cities and towns are lacking. You all have information. You all know the different parts of your communities, the different breakdown of social economic groups that are out there. But what we don't have specifically as CYMPO is what transportation projects are in different parts of the community. So bottom line is we do need to have that. Once we have that, then this particular grant funding source, it's called Safe Streets for All, it becomes eligible for us. So we did put some dollars aside because we're hoping that we can analyze that. And if we do that, then again, it would allow each of your cities, towns, and the county and CYMPO to be able to apply for funds. So that's what that is. And I'm going to circle back in just a minute about the carbon reduction plan. So hold on to that. And then we would put some dollars aside for our human service transportation plan. That's something we do every single year. Lindsay referred to it at the beginning of this meeting. It's a federally required document that allows us to acknowledge each of the human service transportation providers, such as Yavapai Regional Transit, New Horizons, People Who Care, anyone out there who is using federal dollars to provide transportation for elderly, disabled, low-income veterans in our community. Anyone that's out there providing this service using federal dollars, we need to track. And furthermore, this plan also is a coordination plan of how they can work together in a more efficient way. Maybe it's vehicle sharing or fuel sharing or insurance pools, but that's essentially what that particular plan does. And then let me, Allison, if you would stop sharing, I'm going to share my screen and I'll talk about this final part, this carbon reduction program. So tell me, Lindsay, if you can see my screen now.
Yep, I can see it.
All right, so carbon reduction program. CYMPO just received in our bank account, if you see on the right side of this particular screen, $184,375. And we're going to receive this money for the next 5 years because the federal infrastructure bill, or the bipartisan infrastructure law known as Bill, BIL, has quite a few new programs in it. One of them was the one I just mentioned, which was the Safe Streets for All. That's a new program. This is a new program, Carbon Reduction Program, or CRP. The infrastructure bill has put aside a little over $1 billion a year to go across the United States. What that means for us, again, is CYMPO is receiving at least $184,000 a year for this program. I put an asterisk for the following 4 years because, as you can see, the national numbers tick up slightly. So we will get a little bit more each year. I don't have that exact dollar amount, so that's why I put an asterisk next to it. Again, we're learning the program as we speak, so I'm going to give you just a couple pieces, and then in months to come, we'll circle back to you. The definition of the program is it provides funds for project designed to reduce the transportation emissions defined as carbon dioxide, CO2 emissions from on-road highway sources. The one example, or the one eligible project that I brought to you, and again, there's a long list here, and please give staff time to come back and bring some solid recommendations to you. But we could use this money for the construction, planning, and design of on-road and off-road trail facilities, pedestrian, bicyclist, and non-motorized forms of transportation. Just quickly looking at that list today, I just pulled that off the eligible list. Clearly, there's a lot of other uses, but again, we'll go ahead and bring that back to you and let you know what we think might be best within the region's priorities. But as of today, we do have that money placed in CYMPO's budget. Because the end of the fiscal year is 2 weeks away, clearly we can't go through the entire process of making a recommendation to you and being able to implement it in 2 weeks. So we will carry those funds forward to next year. So those are automatically given to us. And that's what I have, Mr. Chair. So those are the amendments in the work program. I'm more than happy to answer questions or comments to help out.
Vice Chair Brown.
Yeah, thank you. Vinny, I just wanted to, would this fit for something like trailhead parking lots and bathroom availability?
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Brown, to the best of my knowledge, yes. That would be an eligible expense. And I hate to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I know there is a lot of conversation with Yavapai County, Prescott and Prescott Valley in that open space area. And I would be very curious again to see how CYMPO might be able to support the efforts within that area and or other trails and trailheads. So that's kind of how I'm researching it and looking at it at this time.
Well, with that, Vinny, I'm going to pass this on that actually the city of Prescott and county are looking at one also up on the other end of town where we'd be able to finish the Circle Trail.
I would absolutely put that into consideration, and I'm happy to get more details from your staff and see if this would be an eligible activity. To the best of my knowledge, Supervisor Brown, it would be, but let me do some more research.
Okay, well, I'll have Dan and contact you along with
Probably Joe Baines.
probably be Roger more likely than Dan, because Dan won't be back. He's on vacation. So I have Roger give you a ring.
Well, Roger's watching the meeting, and I heard Mayor Good mentioned Joe Baines. We can reach out to him also. So
Exactly.
happy to follow up on it.
Okay, great.
Any other questions, comments? Not seeing any. This time we'll entertain a motion. Can we have a motion, please?
You're talking about number
I'll
11.
make it.
Number 11, yes, that's what we're on.
Well, I'd make the motion to approve the amendment of the 22-23 Unified Plan.
Thank you, sir. Can I have a second?
Second. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Moving on, item 12, review, discussion, and possible action to approve amendment of the fiscal year 2022-26 Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Program. Does it look like Ms. McCarthy, are you taking this one?
I am. Yes, thank you. For this amendment, it's to our transportation improvement program. It is basically all of the changes that Vinny just discussed, the reprogramming of the FY21 carry forward funding for the 2 project assessments, the social equity analysis, and an additional $54,000 going to our active transportation plan that is currently programmed in fiscal year 23. That'll just be an increase to the budget there and the scope of work. Also, the inclusion of the carbon reduction program funds in fiscal year 23. And then moving on to the transit section, the $54,000 for the active transportation plan. Number 2, we are adding some funds from FY22. It was an additional apportionment we received and were notified of about a couple weeks ago that we'll be placing towards the Human Services Transportation Plan. And then we have $38,000 of CPG funds that were not yet programmed that will go ahead and place toward that plan as well. And then lastly, number 3, we are noting an increase in the apportioned 5307 transit funds that are designated or apportioned to the designated urbanized area of Prescott and Prescott Valley. There's an increase of 367,000 starting in fiscal year 23 through 26. That concludes the amendment. If anyone has any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Do we have any questions? Not seeing any. Entertain a motion at this time for item 12.
So moved.
Have a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
And just to be clear, we have, I'm sorry, no, we're good. Moving on to item 13. ADOT Northwest District Report. Mr. Roth, are you handling that?
I am. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As far as update goes, our 5-year tentative construction program, the 2023 to 2027, comment period ended on June 2nd, and we're expecting formal transportation board action at Friday's meeting. For our projects in construction, I-17 Anthem Way to McGuireville broadband, all of our in-shoulder trenching and is complete. We have off-shoulder trenching and pull boxes work going on north of Cordes Junction up to McGuireville. And our first round of fiber has been installed from Anthem to Sunset Point, and waiting shipment of our next spools of fiber from the contractor. They're having some supply chain issues getting the actual fiber. State Route 69 from Onyx Drive in Mayer up to Main Street in Dewey Humboldt. Waiting for the contractor to start that project since it is a night job. That will most likely be happening here end of June to in July sometime. Then our State Route 89, Glassford Hill Road to Coyote Springs Road, another night job as well. Same thing, waiting for temperatures for that project. So probably end of June, July start on that work. I-17 Sunset Point Rest Area, our rehab project on that. The contractor will probably start that project around July 11th after the 4th of July holiday. That will be an 8-month long rehab of the restrooms, vending buildings, water, wastewater systems, and other improvements. That will be a full closure of the rest area during that time frame. The only thing that we will permit in there is the semi-truck parking, and we will have temporary facilities for the truck drivers during that project. And then our State Route 89A from State Route 89 to Glassford Hill Road, private pres job. We are anticipating award of that project at the Friday board meeting. And since that will also be a night job, again, that will probably start up sometime in July, waiting for temperatures again. State Route 69, Truewood Drive to Stone Ridge Drive, pavement preservation, looking at still second quarter of fiscal year 23 for a bid advertisement. State Route 69, Prescott Lakes Parkway to Frontier Village, the 3rd lane in each direction in the raised median. Anticipating still bid advertisement in second quarter of fiscal year 23. The I-17 at State Route 169, TI deck replacement, looking at second quarter of fiscal year 23 for bid advertisement. State Route 169, Grant Woods Parkway to I-17, Centerline Rumble Strip project, anticipating 3rd quarter fiscal year 23 for a bid advertisement. State Route 69 at 169 Roundabout. This is one of our district minor projects. Right now, it's still considered a design project without a corresponding funding. But they have it right now as 4th quarter fiscal year 23. But since we don't have design started on that one, I would expect that one probably to move in the schedule. And then finally, our State Route 89 milepost 339 to 363 from Paulden to Ash Fork Centerline Rumble Strip, anticipating a fourth quarter fiscal year 23 advertisement on that project. And that concludes my update.
Thank you, sir. We have any questions for Andy? Done, we move on. So I'm taking we're not doing item 14, Mr. Gallegos?
Mr. Chair, that's correct. Member Knight had a meeting for Yuma City Council he had to attend to, so he sends his apologies and there's no report to give at this time.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to item 15. Everyone note the upcoming meetings, and our next meeting in person will be at the City of Prescott in August. Mr. Gallegos, is there anything you wish to add to the upcoming meetings?
Yeah, just that we don't have a meeting in July for the TAC or the executive board, so please make a note of that. It should already be off your calendars in the annual calendar that we send out. But to Chair's point, we'll be in City of Prescott City Hall next in August. And my last announcement on this calendar update is we have sent out notices to you all as a board and as a TAC about the Rural Transportation Summit, which will be held again in the city of Maricopa at the Auction Casino, September 14th and 15th. Allison has provided you with the information for the conference and the hotel. If you have any questions, be sure you let us know. Happy to help you out, but that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. If that's everything, we move on to item 16, adjournment. Everyone just vote, all in favor to adjourn, say aye.
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 Whoever wants to stick around, they can choose to do so, I suppose. So thanks, everyone. We'll see you. Have a great July. We'll see you in August.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.